There's a quiet lie sitting at the center of modern retirement advice. It doesn't scream. It doesn't look dangerous. In fact, it often comes dressed as guidance, responsible, even helpful. It tells you that if you just save enough, if you just hit that magic number, your retirement income will be safe, secure, untouchable. But here's what nobody is telling you in plain language. Safe is not the same as guaranteed. Comfortable is not the same as protected. And the income you think you have lined up for the rest of your life may be sitting on a foundation that quietly shifts beneath your feet, year after year, without you ever noticing until the day it matters most. I want you to really hear me on this one, because if you're sitting somewhere thinking your retirement income is locked in, that it's handled, that the hard part is behind you, this video might be the most important one you watch this year. Not to scare you, not to shake you, but to give you the clarity that so many people only find when it's already too late. So let's talk about it, honestly, calmly, the way a friend would talk to you over coffee, not the way a brochure talks at you, because your retirement deserves more than a brochure. It deserves the truth. Let me tell you about two people I want you to picture clearly in your mind. Their names are Patricia and Ruth. They're both 67 years old. They both worked hard their entire lives. They both believed they were doing everything right, and yet their retirements look nothing alike, even though on paper they look almost identical. Patricia spent 38 years as a nurse. She lives in a paid-off home in a quiet neighborhood. She has about $310,000 in her retirement account. She also has a small pension from the hospital system she worked for, and her Social Security check arrives the same date every month like clockwork. Ruth was an accountant. She lives in a nicer house, drives a newer car, and has roughly $890,000 saved up across her IRAs and investments. No pension, just her savings and Social Security. By every standard measurement you'd see online, Ruth is winning. She has nearly 3 times what Patricia has. She should be the calm one, the confident one, the one sleeping well at night. But she isn't. Ruth checks her account balance almost every morning. She watches the markets the way some people watch the weather. Every dip feels personal. Every headline feels like a warning. She delays buying things she wants. She skips trips she's been dreaming about. And when her friends ask her how retirement is going, she smiles and says, "Fine, just fine." Patricia, on the other hand, doesn't check her balance much at all. She knows what's coming in every month. She knows what's going out. She visits her grandkids. She takes a trip every spring. She tips well at restaurants, not because she's rich, but because she's not afraid. And that lack of fear, that quiet confidence, is worth more than any number on a spreadsheet. Now here's the question that should make you pause. Why is the woman with $580,000 less feeling safer than the woman with nearly $1 million? It's not luck. It's not personality. It's structure. Patricia has income, Ruth has assets. And there is a massive difference between the two, even though our entire financial culture treats them like they're the same thing. By the way, if you're finding this helpful, the subscribe button lives right down there. And I promise I only make videos worth watching. Now let's keep going, because what I'm about to share with you is the piece almost nobody talks about until it's too late to fix. Here's what most people don't realize about retirement income. The word safe is doing a lot of heavy lifting, and most of the time, it's lying to you. When someone tells you your money is safe, what they usually mean is that it probably won't disappear all at once. That's a very different promise than saying it will support you for the next 25 or 30 years. Think about that for a moment. Your retirement could last 20, 25, even 30 years. That's longer than some careers. That's longer than most marriages. That's longer than the entire span of time you spent raising your children. And during that time, things change. Costs rise, markets move, health needs grow, tax laws shift. The world doesn't stand still just because you've stopped working. So when someone says your income is safe, you have to ask, safe from what? Safe from a market crash next month? Maybe. Safe from inflation slowly grinding down your buying power for the next 2 decades? That's a completely different conversation, and it's the one almost nobody is having with you. Let me give you an analogy that I think will stick with you. Inflation is like an ice cube in the sun. It doesn't melt all at once. It creeps, it nudges, it slowly raises the cost of everything around you. Your groceries, your insurance, your health care. The gallon of milk that costs $4 today will quietly cost $6 in 10 years, and maybe $8 in 20. You won't notice it on any single trip to the store, but over time, it reshapes your life. And here's the part that should really stop you. Your retirement income, the income you've been counting on, may not be growing at the same pace. Some of it might be fixed, some of it might have small adjustments, some of it might have none at all, and if your income is standing still while your costs are slowly walking away from you, you have a problem that won't show up in year 1 or even year 5, but it will absolutely show up in year 15. This is what I mean when I say safe is not the same as protected. A pile of money sitting in a bank is safe, but it's not protected from the slow burn of rising costs. A 401k full of investments is safe in the sense that it exists, but it's not protected from a bad sequence of returns at the wrong moment in your life. Now let's talk about something that almost no one explains clearly. There's a thing called sequence of returns risk, and it's one of the quietest killers of retirement plans. I'll say it in plain language. It means the order in which you experience market gains and losses can completely change your retirement, even if the average return over time is exactly the same. Imagine 2 retirees. Both start with the same amount of money. Both withdraw the same amount each year. Both earn the exact same average return over 20 years. But one of them has a couple of bad market years right at the beginning of retirement, and the other has those same bad years near the end. The one who hits the rough patch early can run out of money. The one who hits it late can finish with hundreds of thousands of dollars left over. Same average, same withdrawals, completely different outcomes. That's what nobody tells you when they say the market always comes back. Yes, it does. But you might not be in a position to wait for it, because while you're waiting, you're also withdrawing. And withdrawing while the market is down is like trying to refill a bucket while you're still pouring water out of it. You lose ground faster than the math on paper suggests. So here's a question for you. Have you ever calculated what your pension is actually worth in real dollars? Most people never do. They know the number that shows up each month, but they've never sat down and asked themselves, what would I need in savings to replicate this income for the rest of my life? Hold that thought, because the answer is usually shocking in the best way possible. Let's talk about pensions for a minute, because if you have one, even a small one, you may be holding something far more valuable than you realize. A modest pension that pays you $1,500 a month for life is not just $18,000 a year. To replicate that with savings, using conservative withdrawal assumptions, you'd need roughly $450,000 sitting in an account. And that assumes everything goes well. Let that sink in. If you have a pension paying $2,000 a month, you may already be carrying the equivalent of more than $500,000 in guaranteed income value. And yet, people with pensions often feel behind because they look at their savings account and don't see a big enough number. They've been trained to measure the wrong thing. This is where I want you to start thinking differently. I want you to imagine your retirement in 2 parts. Not one big number, 2 distinct piles. Pile 1, income that shows up no matter what. Pile 2, your savings. These are not the same. They don't behave the same. They don't protect you the same. And the safer you can make pile 1, the less stressful pile 2 becomes. When pile 1, your guaranteed income, covers your basic needs, your housing, your food, your utilities, your insurance, something incredible happens. Pile 2 stops being survival money. It becomes freedom money. It becomes the trips, the gifts to grandkids, the dinners out, the new car if you want it. It becomes optional, not essential. And that single mental shift is the difference between fearful retirees and free ones. Now think about Patricia again. Her pension and Social Security cover almost all of her monthly needs. Her $310,000 isn't paying her bills. It's her cushion, her safety net, her vacation fund, her emergency reserve. She doesn't sweat a $5,000 dip in the market because the market isn't paying her electric bill. Her income is. The market is just doing its thing in the background while she lives her life in the foreground. Ruth's situation is the opposite. Her Social Security covers maybe a third of her needs. Her $890,000 has to do the heavy lifting. Every single month, she's making withdrawals from an account that bounces with the markets. So when the market is down, her gut twists. When the market is up, she feels a little better, but never fully relaxed, because she knows somewhere deep down that her income isn't really guaranteed. It's hopeful. There's a difference. Quick pause. If you're new here, hit subscribe. I've got a lot more of these waiting for you. And what's coming next might be the most important piece of this entire video, because I want to talk about the question almost nobody asks until it's too late. Here's the real question that should be at the center of every retirement plan. It's not how much do I have. It's how much of my income is protected from things I can't control. The market, inflation, my own emotions, the decisions of strangers in Washington. That's the question. And the closer to 100% your answer is, the safer your retirement actually is. Most people have it backwards. They focus on the size of their nest egg. They watch it like it's a thermometer. Up is good, down is bad. But the nest egg isn't the thing that pays your bills. Your income is. And if your income is dependent on the size of your nest egg every single month, you don't have safety. You have exposure. Think of it this way. Your income floor is like the foundation of your house. Strong, underground, invisible, but holding everything up. Your savings, that's more like the furniture, the decorations, the upgrades. Important, yes, but not what keeps the roof from collapsing. If the foundation is weak, it doesn't matter how nice your furniture is. The whole thing is at risk. So the work of building a real retirement isn't just stacking up savings. It's pouring a strong foundation of guaranteed income, Social Security, pensions, maybe an annuity if it fits your situation. These are the things that keep showing up no matter what the market does, no matter what the headlines say, no matter how cold the winter is. They are the floor under your life. Now let me talk about Social Security for a moment, because this is where so many people quietly leave money on the table without ever realizing it. The decision of when to claim is one of the biggest financial decisions you'll ever make. And most people make it without truly understanding what they're choosing. Think of your benefit like a faucet. Behind that faucet is a pipe, one you've been filling your entire working life. Every paycheck, every tax contribution, it all builds pressure in that pipe. When you turn the faucet on early, at 62, you get less. The flow is smaller. When you wait until your full retirement age, the flow grows. And if you wait all the way to 70, that faucet is pouring at its strongest possible rate. And if you wait too long to turn it on, some of that water never reaches you. It just stays in the pipe, unused, gone. No refunds, no second chances. So the question of when to claim isn't just a financial calculation. It's a life calculation. It depends on your health, your spouse, your other income, your goals, your fears. There is no universal right answer. But there is a right answer for you, and most people never take the time to find it. Here's something most people don't think about. Every year you delay claiming past your full retirement age, your benefit grows by about 8%, guaranteed. There's no investment on earth, no stock, no bond, no fund that gives you a guaranteed 8% annual return for life. And yet, millions of people walk past that opportunity because they're worried about leaving money on the table or because they just want to start getting checks as soon as possible. I'm not telling you to delay. That decision depends on your situation. What I'm telling you is to understand what you're choosing, because the difference between claiming at 62 and claiming at 70 can be enormous. Over a 25-year retirement, it can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars in lifetime income. It can mean the difference between worrying about money in your 80s and never thinking about it at all. Let me ask you something. Have you and your spouse ever actually talked about what happens if one of you is gone? I know that's a hard question. Nobody likes thinking about it. But it's one of the most important conversations you'll ever have, and most couples never have it in full detail. They dance around it, they mention it, but they don't sit down and run the actual numbers. Here's why it matters. When one spouse passes away, the household loses one Social Security check. Just one, the lower of the two. But the bills don't drop in half. The property taxes don't shrink. The insurance doesn't get cheaper. The grocery bill goes down a little, sure, but the fixed costs of running a home stay almost exactly the same. So the surviving spouse is suddenly trying to cover nearly the same expenses with significantly less income. This is one of the quietest financial cliffs in retirement, and it catches people off guard every single year. It's why claiming decisions matter so much. The higher earner's claiming choice doesn't just affect the higher earner. It affects the surviving spouse, sometimes for 10 or 15 years after the first spouse is gone. A small delay in claiming can mean a much larger survivor benefit, and that benefit might be the thing that keeps the surviving spouse out of fear and out of financial trouble in their most vulnerable years. I want you to write that down somewhere. The decisions you make today don't just affect today. They ripple forward for decades. They affect the person you love most. They affect the version of you that will be sitting in that same house, alone one day, looking at a much smaller deposit hitting the account on the 3rd of the month. If this is the first video of mine you've seen, subscribe. If it's the 10th, you already know what to do. Because we're getting into the part of the conversation that most people avoid, the part that separates a hopeful retirement from a protected one. Let's talk about expenses for a minute, because this is where almost everyone underestimates. When people plan for retirement, they tend to think about their current expenses and assume that's roughly what they'll need. Maybe a little less, since the mortgage will be paid off, or the kids will be gone, or they won't be commuting anymore. And on paper, that sounds reasonable. But here's what actually happens. Healthcare costs go up. Medicare doesn't cover everything. Supplemental plans cost money. Prescriptions cost money. Dental and vision are often not covered. Hearing aids, when you need them, are expensive. Long-term care, if you ever need it, can drain a portfolio faster than anything else on earth. And taxes don't disappear in retirement either. They just change shape. Then there's the thing nobody warns you about. You have more time, and time, in retirement, often costs money. Trips you never had time for, hobbies you finally pick back up, helping the grandkids with college or with a wedding or with a down payment, visiting family who lives far away. The first 10 years of retirement are often the most expensive years of your life, and people are stunned when they realize that. So when you sit down to plan, don't plan for a smaller version of your current life. Plan for the life you actually want to live. Then plan for the life you might need to live if things change. And then plan for the slow, quiet pressure of inflation lifting every single number on that page, year after year after year. Here's something that worries me about a lot of the retirement advice floating around. It treats retirement like a finish line. As if you cross it, plant a flag, and you're done. But retirement isn't a finish line. It's a starting line for a whole new chapter that could last as long as your entire career did. And you wouldn't plan for a 30-year career with a one-page document. So why are so many people planning for a 30-year retirement that way? Let me give you another way to think about this. Some things in life are heavy but invisible, like carrying a backpack all day. You get used to it, but it never goes away. That's what financial stress feels like in retirement. It's not always a panic. It's not always a crisis. Sometimes it's just a weight, a low hum of worry that follows you from room to room, from morning to night. And that weight, that hum, is what we're trying to eliminate. Because retirement isn't just about money, it's about how it feels to live the life you've built. Numbers matter, but how you feel about those numbers, that matters just as much. And here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. There are people with millions of dollars who carry that backpack every single day. And there are people with modest savings who walk through their days light and free. The difference is structure. The difference is income. The difference is understanding. So let me ask you a real question. If guaranteed income was the only thing that mattered, would you feel better or worse about where you stand right now? Sit with that for a second, because the answer tells you something important about what kind of plan you actually have and what kind of plan you actually need. If your answer is, I'd feel better, then your work is to grow your guaranteed income floor. Look at Social Security timing. Look at any pension options you have. Look at whether a portion of your savings might be converted into reliable lifetime income through the right kind of annuity, used in the right way, for the right reason, not as a sales pitch, but as a tool. If your answer is, I'd feel worse, then you may have more income protection than you realize, and your work is to translate your savings into a smarter withdrawal plan that protects you from running out before life runs out, because both situations have solutions. Neither one is hopeless, but both require you to look honestly at what you have, instead of what you wish you had. Let me tell you what almost nobody talks about. The biggest threat to your retirement isn't a stock market crash. It isn't a recession. It isn't even inflation. It's the gap between what you assume your retirement will look like and what your retirement actually demands. That gap is where stress lives. That gap is where regret lives. And the only way to close that gap is to do the work of understanding your real numbers, not your hopeful ones. Most people skip this step because it's uncomfortable. They don't want to add up their monthly expenses. They don't want to look at what their Social Security statement actually says. They don't want to call the pension office and ask exactly what their survivor benefits will look like. They don't want to sit down with their spouse and have the awkward conversation about who gets what, who pays what, and what happens if. So they don't, and that avoidance, that quiet looking away, is what costs them more than any market downturn ever could. Here's something to think about. If you found out today that you're actually on track, how would that change your week, your month, your relationship with money? For a lot of people, just having a clear picture would change everything. The fear they carry isn't about facts, it's about fog. The not knowing is heavier than the truth, almost every time. So let's talk about how to actually do this, how to actually look honestly at your retirement and ask, is my income really safe, or am I just hoping it is? Because hope is not a plan. Hope is a feeling, and feelings are wonderful, but they don't pay your property taxes in year 17 of retirement. Step 1 is simple, but most people don't do it. Write down every dollar you spend in a month, not what you think you spend, what you actually spend. Pull 3 months of bank and credit card statements. Add it up. Be honest. Include the streaming subscriptions, the gifts, the dinners out, the donations, the gas, the everything. Because if you don't know what you're spending, you can't know what you need. And if you don't know what you need, you can't possibly know if you're safe. Step 2 is to add up every source of guaranteed income you'll have in retirement. Social Security, both yours and your spouse's, any pensions, any annuities, anything that pays you no matter what the market does. Add it up to a monthly number. That number is your floor. That's the foundation of your house. Look at it. Sit with it. Compare it to your monthly expenses. If your floor is higher than your expenses, take a deep breath. You're in a much better position than you think. Your savings becomes your freedom money, not your survival money. If your floor is lower than your expenses, don't panic. Now you know exactly how much your savings need to bridge each month. And that number, that specific number, is far easier to plan around than a vague feeling of being behind. Step 3 is to stress test your plan. Ask yourself, what happens if inflation runs hotter than I expect for the next 10 years? What happens if I live to 95 instead of 85? What happens if one spouse passes away earlier than expected? What happens if I need long-term care for 2 years? These aren't fun questions, but the plans that survive these questions are the plans that actually protect you. The plans that crumble under these questions are the plans you need to fix while you still have time. Step 4 is to revisit your Social Security claiming strategy with fresh eyes. Don't just assume you should claim at 62 because that's when you became eligible. Don't just assume you should wait until 70 because someone online said it's optimal. Run your specific numbers. Think about your health, your spouse, your other income, your goals. The right age for you might be 64, it might be 67, it might be 70, but it's almost never random, and it's almost never the same for every person. Step 5 is to make a withdrawal plan that doesn't depend on the market behaving itself. A good plan should be able to handle bad markets in the early years. A good plan should hold some cash for short-term needs, so you're not forced to sell investments at the wrong time. A good plan should be flexible enough to spend more in good years and less in tough years, without that flexibility putting you in a panic. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt guilty about spending money in retirement? A lot of people do. They saved for 40 years. They were careful, disciplined, thoughtful. And then they get to retirement and freeze. They're afraid to spend. They sit on their money like it's an emergency reserve forever. And then one day, they realize they spent the last decade of their healthiest years not doing the things they dreamed about because they were waiting for permission. Don't be that person. Build a plan that gives you permission. Let me just say, if this content resonates with you, the subscribe button is right there. I never waste my viewers' time. Now let's talk about something I see way too often, and I don't want it to be you. A lot of retirees fall into something I'd call the comparison trap. They look at someone else's retirement and feel small. They hear about a neighbor who retired to the beach. They see a friend's social media full of cruises and grandkids on vacation. They read articles that say you need $1 million or $2 million or $5 million to retire well. And they slowly start to believe that whatever they have, it isn't enough. Not because the numbers say so, but because the noise says so. Here's the truth. You don't know what's happening behind the photos. You don't know what's loaded onto credit cards. You don't know whose marriage is fraying because one spouse is anxious about money and the other isn't. You don't know who's lying awake at 3 a.m. doing math in their head. You are comparing your insides to other people's outsides, and that's a game you will always lose. Stop measuring yourself against everyone else. Start focusing on what truly gives you freedom. Your retirement is not a competition. It's your one and only life, the one you worked for, the one you earned. And the measurement that matters is not whether someone else has more. The measurement that matters is whether your income can support the life you actually want to live. Now, I want to bring you back to Patricia and Ruth, because there's a part of their story I haven't told you yet. Patricia, with her smaller savings and her pension and her relaxed mornings, has something else going for her. She has a written plan. She has a one-page document she made for herself where she wrote down her income sources, her expenses, her estimated future increases, and her safety margins. She updates it once a year. That's it, one page, once a year. Ruth, with her larger account balance, doesn't have anything like that. She has statements, she has logins, she has emails from her brokerage, but she doesn't have a plan. She has a portfolio. And those are not the same thing. A portfolio is a collection of investments. A plan is a roadmap. You can have all the investments in the world and still be lost without a map. And you can have a modest collection of resources and still walk confidently because you know exactly where you're going. This is what I want you to take away more than almost anything else. Wealth without a plan is just noise. Income with a plan is peace. And peace, my friend, is what we're really after. Not a number, not a status, peace. The kind that lets you sleep at night. The kind that lets you say yes to your grandkid asking you to come visit. The kind that lets you book the trip, buy the gift, take the chance, live the life. Here's something I want you to hold on to, especially if you're sitting there worried that you've fallen behind. You're not behind. In fact, you may already be standing on one of the strongest financial foundations available today. Social Security still works. Pensions still exist. The system, for all its flaws, still produces real lifetime income for millions of people. And if you understand how to use what you have, instead of constantly chasing what you don't, you might find that you already have what people with millions are searching for. Let me say that again because it's important. You may already have what people with millions are searching for. Not because of luck, not because of magic, because guaranteed income, the kind that arrives in your account month after month without you having to do anything to make it happen, is more valuable than most people understand. And if you have it, even a modest version of it, you are wealthier in the way that actually matters than many people who have a giant pile of investments and no income plan at all. So where do we go from here? What's the path forward for someone watching this video and feeling that mix of motivation and concern? The path is clarity. The path is action. The path is doing the simple things that most people don't bother to do and reaping the rewards that come from being one of the few who actually sit down and look honestly at their picture. Make a list of all your income sources for retirement. Write the actual dollar amounts. Add them up. Make a list of all your monthly expenses. Write the actual dollar amounts. Add them up. Subtract one from the other. Look at the result. That's your starting point, not the headlines, not the comparisons. That. Then, decide whether you want to grow your guaranteed income, reduce your expenses, or do a little of both, because those are essentially your two levers: income up, expenses down. Everything else is a detail that fits inside those two big ideas, and both levers are within your control more than you realize. Next, talk to your spouse if you have one. Don't dance around the topic. Sit down at the kitchen table. Bring the lists. Have the awkward conversation about what happens if one of you is gone, about what each of you needs to feel safe, about what kind of life you want to share in the years you do have. Because the financial decisions you make together are 1,000 times stronger when both of you understand them. After that, look at your Social Security strategy. Look at your pension options if you have a pension. Look at your withdrawal plan if you have savings. Don't just take the default. Don't just take the easy choice. Take the right choice for your life. And if you don't know what the right choice is, get help. Talk to someone who isn't trying to sell you a product, just trying to help you build a plan. Finally, and maybe most importantly, give yourself permission to live the life you've built. So many retirees forget this. They spend so long preparing for retirement that they forget to actually live it. They sit on their money like it's a museum piece. They miss the trips. They miss the celebrations. They miss the slow Tuesday mornings with no schedule and a quiet cup of coffee. Don't be that person. Build a plan that lets you spend with confidence, not just save with anxiety. Because here's the thing. Your income needs to be greater than your expenses, but your confidence needs to be greater than your fear. Numbers matter, but how you feel about those numbers, that matters just as much. And that feeling, that confidence, it doesn't come from having more. It comes from understanding more. If you've stayed with me this whole way, I just want to thank you. Truly. This isn't easy stuff to think about. It's not the fun part of life. It's the quiet, careful, slightly uncomfortable part. But it's also the part that determines whether you spend your retirement chasing or choosing, worrying or wondering, counting or celebrating. And that's a choice you get to make, starting today, with whatever you have, wherever you are. So go look at the numbers, go have the conversations, go ask the questions, go build the plan, because your retirement income is only as safe as the structure you've built around it. And the structure is yours to build, yours to strengthen, yours to define. Nobody else is going to do it for you. But the good news, the really good news, is that you don't need to be a financial expert to do it. You just need to be honest and willing and patient with yourself. The rest will come. If this video helped you see your retirement in a new way, hit that subscribe button. I've got a lot more where this came from. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself, take care of your plan, and remember, safe is good, but protected is better. And protected is something you build, one honest decision at a time.